A chain of events in Iran that just a short time ago would have seemed inconceivable. And the sword is drawing close to the regime's neck, and even the Revolutionary Guards are beginning to understand that after the humiliating defeat in the recent war with Israel and the United States, what was will no longer be. However, they are still playing a double game on the nuclear issue. Meanwhile, the terrorist organization Hamas announced, "We have conveyed a response to the hostage deal negotiations in a positive spirit." And President Trump has replied that this is a good start, but we know the terrorist organization has not folded and has not blinked. On the contrary, Hamas's answer has simply exposed their grave flaws. In fact, the IDF announced over the weekend that it has operational control over 65% of the Gaza Strip area and is very close to achieving the strategic goals of Operation Gideon's Chariots. However, meanwhile, another Lebanese terrorist operating on behalf of Iran's Quds Force was eliminated. Welcome to Boots on the Ground. I'm your host, Yari Pinto, bringing you all the truth about what is happening in Israel. And over the weekend, Hamas transmitted its response to the negotiating mediators after internal consultations stating, "We are fully ready to enter immediately into negotiations on a mechanism to implement the agreement." And Israel confirmed the response has been received. Its details are being examined. However, nice words are one thing, while actions are something else. Even as its leaders were talking about coming to an arrangement to end this war, Hamas fighters were attacking an aid distribution compound in Rafah in the Gaza Strip, wounding 2 aid workers. And the American GHF Foundation published fragments of a grenade that it claims was thrown at its workers and stated, "This is what those trying to feed civilians are facing now." Despite this, the Trump administration hopes to announce a deal during Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to the White House on Monday, and Jerusalem is preparing to dispatch a delegation to finalize understandings, but Hamas is still erecting obstacles and is demanding several amendments to this framework. With all of this in mind, I believe that it is not advisable at this time to celebrate Hamas's answer because it attached 3 reservations that in practice constitute a negative replay, and Hamas continues to bargain as if it is not cornered and has not been defeated on the battlefield in Gaza. However, there is another report of relevance to this story, as senior Hamas officials in Qatar have been instructed to surrender their personal weapons. I'm not sure what the significance of that is, but it is reportedly part of a large American effort to make progress in the negotiations. Personally, I don't really think it makes much difference to anything if Hamas leaders in Qatar have a personal weapon on them or not, but it matters a lot if Hamas fighters in the Gaza Strip can still fire weapons at me and my family and the rest of Israel. And in these last few days, 2 rockets were fired towards Israeli civilians from inside the Gaza Strip. These rockets were intercepted, but they remind us of the work that is needed to be done by the IDF in order to destroy all these stockpiles of weapons and ammunition that Hamas still holds in tunnels and bunkers in the Gaza Strip. And meanwhile, in the Palestinian village of Barata, north of Jerusalem, and on the seam line near the Israeli city of Caesarea, security forces arrested a terror cell that was preparing for an immediate attack. To the north, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps continues to try and rebuild Hezbollah in Lebanon, but Israel continues to detect these efforts and shut them down. 4 strikes were carried out on Saturday morning in southern Lebanon in what appears to be a campaign of targeted eliminations. This occurs alongside Hezbollah's attempts to stage shows of force, and behind the scenes, talks about disarming the organization, and while the Iranians are trying to advance and rebuild offensive capabilities for Hezbollah and Palestinian organizations in several areas. This includes not only in Lebanon, but also in Syria and elsewhere in the Middle East. TBN Israel senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani will give us a closer look at this story. Personally, I think that Iran should stop spending time and resources trying to rebuild terrorist organizations to threaten Israel and fix their own country's many problems instead. But reports in the Iranian International News Portal indicate that the regime actually is spending a fair amount of time and resources on internal security, which is another way of saying brutal repression of their own population. The report adds that Iran's long-suffering population is dealing with a sense of fear and suffocation, and everyone is wondering how much more it can take. And meanwhile, according to senior political sources, Iran will at some stage return to negotiations with the United States on the new nuclear agreement, yet there are parallel fears that it will move the entire nuclear project onto a clandestine track. So guys, we have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yari Pinto, and with me is Mati Shoshani, and together we'll bring you boots on the ground, the news reports that brings you all the truth about what's happening in Israel on day 638 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region operating under the control of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. And I'm always that spreads lies and twists reality, and I'm asking you to help us spread the truth, support what we do here at TBN Israel, share this video, and make sure to subscribe to Boots on the Ground, to TBN Israel YouTube channel, and help us reach more people with what's going on so that they will know how to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Now to start